Hello there, my name is Pastor Buck Wilford. I'm the pastor here at Brunswick Community Church. We're located right in the Rito's Bakery Plaza at 1930 Pearl Road. We have church at 10 a.m. on Sundays and Bible study at 6:30 p.m. on Thursdays. We also have good Christian education hour at 9 a.m. Sundays if you want to come a little early. We're a church that loves people and we love God. We'd love to connect with you. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to just be a part of your life as well too. We're focused in on preaching the Bible. I do it verse by verse, expository style. We hold to the 5 solas. We believe strongly that we're saved only by grace alone, through faith alone, through Christ alone. And it's all to the glory of God alone. And the only thing we hold as infallible and inerrant and strongly adhere to is the scriptures alone. We'd love to see you out here. We'd love to have you come visit. Thank you so much.
Ooh, that was a little abrupt. Next one is 381. 381, just 10 pages back, okay? 10 pages back. Solid rock. Solid rock. Next one is 407. It is well. So, 407.
go.
You're the most trained medical person.
All right, you're good.
All right, we're live and we already had jokes this morning. Yeah. Well, welcome to Brunswick Community Church. We're glad you're here. And I know Pastor Buck says it often, but I was really this week. I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, this is a great sermon. Not that I have anything to do it, but I was just reading and reading. I just wanted to keep on going through Nehemiah. I was just so illuminated by the Word of God, and I hope I can share this with you. Here, we're going to continue. We're in chapter 2, verses 11 through 20, and let me read the verses here. So if you have your Bible, you can open up to Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 11 through 20. So I came to Jerusalem, and it was 3 days. And I arose in the night, I and a few men with me. I did not tell anyone what my God was putting into my heart to do for Jerusalem. And there was no animal with me except the animal on which I was riding. So I went out at night by the valley gate in the direction of the Dragon Spring, and on to the Dung Gate, inspecting the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and its gates, which were consumed by fire. Then I passed on to the Spring Gate in the King's Pool, but there was no place for my animal to pass. So I went up at night by the ravine and inspected the wall. Then I turned and entered the valley gate and turned around. Now the officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, nor had I as yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the officials, or the rest who were doing the work. Then I said to them, you see the calamity we are in? That Jerusalem lies waste and its gates burned by the fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem so that we will no longer be a reproach. And I told them how the hand of my God has been good to me, and also about the king's word, which he has said to me. Then they said, let us arise and build. So they strengthened their hands for the good work. But Sanballat, the Horonite, and Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard it. And they mocked us and despised us and said, what is this thing you are doing? Are you rebelling against the king? So I responded to them with the word and said to them, the God of heaven will give us success. Therefore, we his slaves will arise and build, but you will have no option. You will have no portion, right, or remembrance in Jerusalem. That was the word of God. And the word was good. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for once again a beautiful day. I'm so thankful for everybody that's present, everybody that's listening and watching. Thank you for the word, Nehemiah. It shows his leadership, his dedication, his prayer, and his commitment to you, that I pray that I and all those here, that we can follow in his footsteps and use some of the tools and guidance that he shares with us, Lord. Be with us as we study your passage, illuminate our minds and our hearts, and open our ears and eyes. And we pray all this in Jesus' holy name. Amen. So I got a slide here to kind of open up, and I was reading, and if you heard the passages, there was a lot of preparation and recon. You know, we did this a lot in the Army, and I was going to post some cool, like, inspection slide from the Army, and I was like, you know what, that's not really cool. Nobody wants to see a bunch of Army equipment laid out, right? So I was like listening in the background, and I heard the Olympics, and I was like, ooh, the Olympics is going. Then I was thinking about my mini-me, Eli. He's a cross-country runner, and I was like, well, that's like too many kids, so I couldn't really find this photo, so I was like, oh, here's some sprinters. I don't know if this is the Olympics or not, but when you think about it, you know, it's probably a bad analogy, but you know, maybe these are a relay team here. You know, I don't know. Let's just ponder that. But nevertheless, when you're preparing for the Olympics, it's individual, but it's also a team. You're representing your country, something greater than yourself. And these individual athletes, they still have a team, they have a coach, and there's preparation. You just don't wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to go run the 400 meters in the Olympics. So there's preparation, there's training, there's recon, assistance from others, planning, and you have competition, you have enemy, you have people that will doubt you. How many people, I played sports, you can't do it, you're not good enough. So many athletes we hear, even Michael Jordan himself was told he wasn't good enough, and he turned out to, pretty good basketball player. But in this lesson, there's 3 parts to this passage. The first is through 11 through 16. It relates to Nehemiah's steps in preparation, and then the second part, verses 17 to 18, he enlists the good people of Jerusalem to join the work. And then the last 2 verses describes, once you get all that preparation and you get a crowd and you get some people on your side, there's always going to be those naysayers coming going, oh, you can't do it. You're not going to do it. We kind of see that in the world today. People will just try to stop us from even wanting to start. And then overall, we can summarize this passage with noting how thoughtful, methodical Nehemiah was in his preparation for the work ahead of him. Just like that Olympic runner, just like my son. My son could probably be a little more methodical and prepare a little bit better, but his careful approach is apparent by his assessment of the walls, his enlistment of the workers, even his response to the opposition. So verse 11, so I came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. I looked at this right away. It's a very simple verse, and I was like, 3 days? Coincidental. What else happened after 3 days, right? Beautiful connection. I'm like, well, can end right there. That points to Christ. All the Old Testament is pointing to Christ. But, these simple words aren't just so simple. There's a lot of depth just outside that connection of the 3 days, and I didn't want to go too deep in there, but just think about it. He just traveled, straight line distance is about 850 miles, but we know roads aren't like that, right? So we're looking at a 1,000+ mile journey from where he was at in Persia to, in modern day Iran, here to Jerusalem. Probably took a month for him to complete his travel, and it's reasonable, just like Ezra, you can see in chapter 8:32, he took a few days rest, secured his accommodations, he familiarized himself with his surroundings and his people. And I just keep on thinking, and just slowly in the Old Testament alone, that Scripture keeps on telling us to rest, right? God created the heavens, the earth in 6 days, and all on the land, and then he rested. The 4th commandment in Exodus 28:11 states the people of God are to work 6 days and rest. We can equate in modern context of the Sabbath day as worship, but emphasis was on it being a day of rest. The Sabbath serves to remind Israel how God saved them from bondage and called them into rest of his covenant, Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 15. And as we're going through chapter 1, he heard the bad news. He prayed earnestly daily. It took 4 months from the first time he heard the news to getting that open door from the king, and then he just traveled for a month or maybe more. And then instead of running and rushing, once again, it shows his testament to patience, and relying on God, because he's not rushing into rebuilding. He's not wanting to do something haphazard. He's taking himself, preparing himself, and physically, mentally, before starting out this task. And then we'll see, he does a careful inspection after he gets some rest. He's reconning the land, visiting, seeing the people, seeing what's going on before he makes decisions. And he's giving proper deliberation concerning the Lord's work. Can you imagine if he came in and it was 10 o'clock at night and he's like, to the walls? You know, I don't want to finish the rest of that song. We might have heard it, but I don't think he probably got the same response from his people. I don't think he would have got enlisted the help. You know, he didn't rush from work. He probably befriended some people, made some connections. You know, he made that grand entrance, or another connection to this rest. You know, he came in with the army. He has all these supplies, and he took time to rest. Then he transitions here in verse 12. And I arose in the night, I and a few men with me. I did not tell anyone what my God was putting into my heart to do for Jerusalem, and there was no animal with me except the animal on which I was riding. So here he is at night, and he took a few men, probably trusted people, probably maybe a few of those guards that will follow the king's order, but he went at night, not day. Why? Pastor Buck can tell you, reconning at night is very difficult, but he's probably been walking around during the daylight too, but he's taking his chance to see the other side of the wall at night. Why? In the period of darkness, it's very difficult for people to see you, and they didn't have the technology of NVGs and all these other kind of things, so Nehemiah can see a different aspect of the walls. He wanted to see the outside of the wall, not the inside of the wall. He wanted to see what was going on, and he probably left to take a chosen few people. Maybe those 3 days of rest, he was able to connect with them. And we know from studying, we know that the fear of God comes wisdom, and wisdom is knowing the right thing, doing the right thing, doing it at the right time, in the right way, to the right context. This could be a political message, because I didn't hear any left, right? It's always right. We're doing the right thing. Nehemiah is one of the best examples of a man who is wise here. Proverbs 18:15, the mind of the prudent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. And we can go a little further in Proverbs 24:27, instructs us to prepare your work outside and make it ready for yourself in the field afterward, then build your house. So he's taking the time to really see what's going on. He heard it, but he wants to see it for himself. Nehemiah has shown this in his preparation. Verse 8 in chapter 2, like we studied last week, he knew what he needed. He asked the king for the lumber. Could he probably would have taken it, but he's getting permission. He's getting the king's support. And like I said, during the army, you know, there's a lot of dangers at night doing a recon. But like he said, like I was saying, recons at night has an advantage, less likely to be seen, and this is what he's doing. And then this animal, just kind of that historical type of atmosphere with the leader. You know, even though Nehemiah is humble, he is taking a position of leadership because he's the only one riding an animal. He's up higher, probably everybody around him. So he's on this animal. So he's setting up, you know, that tone that he is the leader, but it's of God through God. But he's showing that leadership. So the next few verses will explain what Nehemiah and his team is doing. Verse 13. So I went out at night by the valley gate in the direction of the dragon's spring, and on to the dung gate, inspecting the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and its gates were consumed by fire. So he's given a direction of where he's going, confirming that the walls are broken down, and he noticed it was consumed by fire. If you read Jeremiah, like we're going through, Daniel, any of the others, they'll explain Babylonians came in and just destroyed a city by any means possible. And then he continues, then I passed on to the spring gate and to the king's pool, but there was no place for my animal to pass. Remember, he said he came riding in on the animal, the buildings and the structures in the area. It's so broken down that he can't even pass with an animal, most likely a donkey or a mule, which should be able to pass through that. So that's letting you know how bad it is. So some of the places mentioned in the last two verses are difficult or even impossible to recognize with certainty, even back then and even now today. We know nothing is left of the walls and gates he inspected in the north, and the later structures have covered up their places that appear to be where the team ventured. And Kathleen Kenyon, I hope I got that name correctly, asserts the King's Pool was probably the pool of Siloam, where Jesus healed the blind man in John verse 9-11. And it's interesting, the water was fresh water from the Gideon spring, thus making the water qualify for Megvacon, for ritual bathing. And as of 2024, this site was found and actually discovered. So, not, I believe it because it's in the Bible, but, archaeologists is also proving that these things exist as well. Amazing. So verse 15. So I went up at night by the ravine and inspected the wall. Then I turned and entered the valley gate and turned around. So the valley ravine that he mentions is Kidron Valley. This valley separated the Temple Mount from the Mount of Olives, which ends to the Dead Sea. And I keep on listening to these other podcasts, and sometimes they mention things, and I was like, oh, Dead Sea. It's kind of interesting, the Dead Sea, like there's no fresh water that flows into this Dead Sea at all. So that's pretty much why it's a Dead Sea. You can go in there and float. There's no fresh water flowing in or out of it, so flowing into it. So it's like one of those ponderous things. Like how's this still full? So I can picture the difficulty Nehemiah is trying to have right here and walk in this area. And you have to consider that the buildings, because he's having to turn around and traverse through this area. And in general, the terrain is kind of hilly anyways, and a lot of the buildings were built on terraces. Have you seen like how the buildings will cut into the land or grow into it, and then you got the buildings. But we got to remember that the Babylonians destroyed everything, and all of this structure has fallen down into the valley from this terrace, from the hills. And we know this because the Bible tells us, but archaeological evidence suggests it was so bad that Nehemiah decided to rebuild the wall on the crest of the hill rather than on the slope where it had been. So this does make the boundary a little bit smaller. So there were some decisions that had to be made that night, and maybe easier for them. It's a little bit smaller area to protect the old town of Jerusalem that we know of today. And I can relate to this recon and inspections so much, because we love to have inspections for the inspection to the inspection. We just keep on inspecting stuff. A lot of times as a young soldier, I was out there and I was like, man, are they just wasting our time? Like, they just, hey, you guys got anything to do? No, just go take all your equipment out of your Connex and lay it out. We'll be out soon. That word soon, right? Like, when are you coming? Like, I wanted to go do something a little bit later. But a good team leader he always used the opportunity we would train and really get to know the equipment that we were working on. He used those opportunities not just for a layout, but hey, let's set it up, let's tear it down, let's make sure it works. Really inspect your gear, know where everything is, put it in the same spot. Why? So you understand the equipment, what you're working on. It also allows leaders to prepare. We're busy laying stuff out for inspections so they can prepare, but in a sense they're preparing for us because we know exactly what equipment we have, if anything's missing. Because when you're going out to battle, that's not when you want to find out that you're missing something. A couple fast forward years later, I'm the one trying to inspect all this gear, preparing for soldiers. I'm like, oh man, I feel sorry. Some inspections probably went a little too far to keep us busy. It does get old, but it does have its purpose. In recons for mission, you don't always get to see the terrain visually, so I applaud Nehemiah actually getting boots on the ground and checking these walls and fences that he know from the end of chapter 2 or verse 10 that the enemy's around and they're watching too. So it's just not a friendly area. He's got enemies and spies probably within the gates. And Nehemiah is preparing for this task that the Lord has laid onto him. A good leader, one with overarching themes in this book, he needs to be thoroughly prepared. He knows the plan, he knows God's working in his heart, but he truly wants to be physically and mentally prepared for this rebuilding. He understands the circumstances, the conditions, the hazards will face them when they rebuild the wall, and he just doesn't want to be sitting there doing his part. He wants to be able to know what everybody's doing and what the conditions are and exactly what they need to do to accomplish their mission. And now verse 16. Now the officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, nor had I as yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the officials, or the rest who were doing the work. When I think about this, sometimes you're like, man, when the president does something and launches an attack, and they're like, where did this come from? Well, you don't know who your enemy is within. Sometimes you gotta, as a leader, you gotta do something and then bring it to light. You don't want to tip anybody off. He wanted to do this recon. He wanted to inspect the walls. He brought his inner circle with him, people he could trust, and he did not tell them what to do. This verse also ties back in the verse 12 earlier. He's informing the readers of his purpose. He came almost proto-Christ-like with an army. He came in and then he rested 3 days. And then I was thinking, I was like Buzz Lightyear for some reason, to infinity and beyond. Like he's got this like continuous mission. There's a beyond the future. There's that kind of connection here in a way that Christ is coming, and then he's coming again for a second time. He's preparing the path. He's wanting to rebuild Jerusalem. He came in with an army. Jesus didn't come the first time with an army, but he will the second time. So there's kind of like overlapping themes here. Here they are simply waiting for the Messiah. They've been prophesized for this Messiah. They don't have the full context, nor would I probably at that time. But here he is in verse 16. He wanted what everyone did know, that Nehemiah had the full support of the king. He had the supplies, and he had a plan, and he was building that plan. But he didn't want to let anybody know that he didn't trust. Verse 17. Then I said to them, you see the calamity we are in, that Jerusalem lies waste, and its gates burned by fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, so that we will no longer be a reproach. Nehemiah is demonstrating some leadership here. Leadership is how do you get people to do something that they don't want to do. They've attempted to rebuild this wall. They've been in and out of oppression all their life. Ezra tried to rebuild the wall, and the king it's currently the king that sent Nehemiah has stopped them. And they've already had some enemies around them coming up and checking up what to do. And he's a recruiter in a sense. And I was like, man, I can connect with this. I did army recruiting, right? Like, how do you get people to do something? There's always going to be the people that raise their hand and be like, I join. You're like, oh man, thank you. That made my life easy as a recruiter, Like when you're struggling, that guy's got some work boots and he's like, man, I don't want to go to this job. And I'm like, well, let me tell you, the Army has construction jobs. How'd you like that? We can get you some certifications, But I also had a story once, and I just shared it with some coworkers because they were asking me. And I remember my first interview, and you had to get certified by your station commander, your boss. And when I went out there, I went to the home. This is 2009. You know, Iraq War, Afghanistan War. It was all going on. And I was a 17-year-old kid. I knew you already talked to 2 of the other branches. And I'm like, I'm already nervous because this is like my first one. I'm at the parents' house. I need parental consent. And I had my boss with me. Whew. The odds were against me. So we're going through it. And my boss likes to talk more than anybody I ever seen, even Pastor Buck. I love Aaron Morrison. If he's watching this, you know, I love you, brother. He's from Michigan, so there's 1 week every year we're not friends, but he understands. But the parents asked me a question, and they're like, is my son going to deploy? Are they going to get hurt? Are they going to get injured? I was like, could, yes, maybe. I don't know. You know, he's wanting to serve his country and do something greater than himself. Although maybe for college money, I don't know. But yes, there's a chance he will deploy. There's a chance he will get hurt. I'm standing here before you or sitting down before you. I was hurt. I was injured. And I've already deployed several times. What I can tell you is what you choose to do in the military can make a difference of how much contact you have. But most likely you're still going to deploy. I can see my boss, he's sitting there going, what are you doing? And, you know, sometimes you got to know your enemy, right? I knew how the Marines sold their message. I knew how the other branches served their message. And we had to sit down, we gave them the practice test because I don't want to talk about jobs because don't take this offense to anybody. You don't want to sell somebody a Lamborghini when they're only qualified for Ford Pinto. You know what I mean? So we gave him the practice test. We're letting the parents chew on it. And he's taking me outside. And when the parents are chewing on it, my boss is chewing me on. What are you doing? Like, do you want to put people in the Army or not? You're going to have a very long 3 years. And I smiled. I took it. And I was like to myself, I'm like, I'm an MP for one. I have some ethics. I want to do things the right way. And I'm not gonna sit there and tell this kid and their parents a lie just to get them in the military. And then when we came back, the parents came down. They're like, "Where can we sign parental consent?" I looked over at my boss. I was like, "Oh, so much for telling the truth, huh?" They're like, 2 other recruiters came in and said, "Don't worry, your son or daughter, if they take this job, they won't deploy." The kid took the test. He scored very well, and I was like, "Well, what do you want to do, kid?" He's like, "Infantry." I was like, "Woo! I'm glad I told the truth." He wanted to be an airborne ranger. He ended up doing it. I think he's still in, but that was like the connection. You know, Nehemiah here, he knows he has a difficult task for him, but he's connecting with himself, but he's including them. And that's how I was with the kid. When I was talking to the parents, I was reminding them, I said, we always have a risk of deploying and being in danger. And it also related, we could go walk across the street and have similar dangers, you know. But just like Nehemiah, in the military in the aspect, we're wanting to do something for a greater good and a greater cause. And instead of telling some half-truth or some motivational football speech, I like to say, that only tempts you for a little bit. Almost like the Browns probably got a good cheer. They came out, they had a fumble, and when the first act of adversity hit, they just fell. Nehemiah wanted to connect deeper here. He faces it. He would not have credibility if he acted like this was no big deal. Like, oh, don't worry, we'll build the wall. It'll be fine. Everything will be okay. He knew it was dangerous and that it wouldn't be that simple. Remember, many of us have been present. We see this. We're Cleveland Browns fans. We're used to stuff not being too simple. We see adversity when people don't tell the truth, and when adversity hits, people want to walk away from this. So Nehemiah has a good leader trait here. He has a plan, the equipment, and etc. And he knows that but he knows they know the situation truly better than he does. He's connecting here. They have been living here, and he is coming from the outside, much like I was recruiting. I wasn't from the area. I had to implant myself, get to know the area, get to know the different high schools, get to know what's going on. I knew what the Army was about, but I don't know what the situation is. I was coming into a house that I don't know what the atmosphere is, if they're like hating that their son or daughter wants to join the military or not. Nehemiah, he's coming in from the outside. He was a cupbearer living probably a very good life, and he's coming back to Jerusalem, and he's seeing the shambles, the wreckage, the carnage, the destruction of the fire, the fallen gates of the city. And these people have come back over the last few years, they're living this, and every time they try to put a step forward, they're getting knocked back down again. At some point, you just get used to it. You always wonder. I put in a kid once. I was like, why don't you want to join? You just get used to living in an uncomfortable place becomes comfortable for you, and that's a very sad point. If you ever go to a third world country, like, why don't you just move? Like, why don't you just leave this? But people get comfortable with the uncomfortable, and the uncomfortable becomes comfortable because that's their new reality. And these people in Jerusalem have probably gotten to the point where, like, well, this is how it is. Here's this guy wanting to rebuild it, but he's taking an approach. He goes, we are in, that we will no longer be a reproach. Just like Daniel, Nehemiah wasn't part of this, but he's including himself because he realized he's a sinner and he's part of the nation of Israel, and he's just like one of them. Sometimes we need an outsider to come in, and we don't need them to say, "Hey, this place looks great." I like what you did with the walls. No, joking aside, I like the fire scorched buildings. It looks really nice. It livens up the place. But he's waking them up and reminding them of their purpose of God and what their holy city is all about. He's trying to reinvigorate them. The first change is changing to be honest, access the situation, and recognize that it needs to be a change. And you can take that in any application. In order to change, you got to recognize you need it first, right? And then you got to take one step at a time. Verse 18, and I told him how the hand of my God has been good to me, and also about the king's word, which he had said to me. Then they said, let us arise and build. So they strengthened their hands for the good work. Man, I like to know what else he said, because, man, he has really inspired them. He is connecting the how with the divine verification. He's letting the people know that this isn't just a good idea, like a home project at my house, which I have several ongoing at the same time. But God has his hands in it. He has his hands in this plan and the support of the king. And I think that's important. He's connecting them with God and their purpose of Jerusalem and what that stands for. But he's also adding the king's word, because this king, remember, set the decree for them to stop building. So he's connecting them both with our holy King of Kings and also the king here on earth that's ruling them and that they serve under. So he's connecting with both of them. And he's connecting with the people that they're rebuilding for the right reasons. They're just not building to rebuild because, I want a new kitchen sink, or I want to paint my walls a different color. No. He's connecting to the past but not dwelling on it. He's reminding them of the covenant, of the purpose, of their city. And he's connecting the fact that God does honor his covenant, but for his sake. We covered that in Jeremiah. I think this is a point Nehemiah is trying to say. This is for God's sake, not ours. This city is the Lord's city. This is the nation of God. Then he Then he has God's authorization, as you can see, to build. And he also has the authorization of the king of the government. You know, even today I can go build something on my own, but if I don't maybe get a permit or get the right people or have it up to code, or I probably don't get as good as a contractor if I'm like, hey, can you just do this on the side, Like, the contractor's like, hey, don't worry about that, perfect, I got you. No, he got the permission of the king to do this too, because it's important to also have that earthly connection of the king, so it won't be stopped. Kings honored their decrees. He stopped it, he reissued it, so having that backing is very important. So the people responded here, and I really think it's twofold. They speak, and then they take action. Man, if I was the leader and I was like, hey, need you to go to the motor pool there, I'd be like, yes, Sergeant. No, sir. Yes, sir. And then they take action. That would be like, oh, that would be amazing if every time there was an order given, they would just respond and take action. I used to tell them, I don't care if you complain, just keep digging the hole while you're doing it, right? Just don't stop. Sometimes you gotta go dig those foxholes with them. And I missed the mark in the Army sometimes. I wish I could have got those reactions. They told him, like I said, I don't care if you complain, just keep doing the work. But if any soldiers watching, I don't want to discredit them. It was an honor to serve beside them and work, and if I was their leader, it was a true blessing to have them in my life. What a response, though, isn't it? It isn't Nehemiah that's asking, it's God. And it is God asking through Nehemiah, but through his integrity, his honesty, and the people could see that it was God who was asking, and they answered the call. He's including himself, he's connecting to the covenant and the promises, and he has that little paper saying that, hey, the king of Persia is supporting this too. He's coming with it all. And the commitment and being a beacon and a light of the Lord, it was infectious. And the people around him are beginning to experience the same joy and glory of God. What God was putting in Nehemiah's heart is God was putting in their hearts too. And see how important it is to share God's word and talk about Christ, and through his word you can help illuminate others and invigorate them, get them to do things maybe they don't want to do or follow. And just like a true and humble servant leader, we're talking about those connections to Christ a little bit. Nehemiah is not taking any credit for any of this. He's pointing it back towards God and say, hey, I'm just the messenger. I'm just the beacon. I'll lead the way in the path, but I don't take any credit. And so God has strengthened their hands for the good work. But as always, there's trouble always lurking, right? Even if it's God's plan, it's not always going to be easy, and this is what this verse is alluding to. And Sanballat and Tobiah, the Ammonite official, and Geshem, the Arab, heard it, and they mocked us and despised us, and said, what is this thing you are doing? Are you rebelling against the king? And just as we close in verse 2, we have Sanballat and Tobiah, with addition to Geshem. Now I'm calling these guys the three amigos here. I don't know, I tried to look, I don't know who really Geshem is, but some will say, he's Arab, probably hated the Jews, and he's in the area, and he's like, sort of when you got people kind of bullying and mocking, you just start to get other people, you're like, who are you? And like, why are you part of this now? But it's important he's in here, and we know that he's despising, and he doesn't want Nehemiah and the city to be built already. But Nehemiah, through God's providence, was able to rally the troops just as God instructed in life today. We are aware that we will face adversary and struggles when we're implementing God's plan. We can see this. Young and immature believers today. You know, if you're a young believer, a new believer, a mature believer, you know, sometimes as we draw closer to God, sometimes it seems like we get more friction, right? Or people come out of the woodworks and are like, what are you doing? Like, you're in a public place. Why are you praying? Don't you can do that. Go to the bathroom and go to bathroom stall and pray. I don't want to see that out in the open. People will mock you. What are you doing? They'll inconvenience you. They'll mock your commitment. You know, the devil is at place, not the devil himself, but he's sending out his demons. He's working through these three fellows that do not want Nehemiah to accomplish his mission. They don't want the people of Jerusalem to build the city. And Nehemiah could represent the more mature believer in here. And the people who responded to the work in verse 8 can represent the young believer. So we can make that contrast. Can you imagine if these were all young believers, not maybe strong in the faith, if Nehemiah wasn't present? As soon as these guys came up here, like, hey, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be doing this. Remember, was it Sanballat? He was a governor of the town above, north of Judah. You know, now you have an official. Like, what are you doing? And they're mocking. And in the modern day at that time, going against and rebelling the king could end up in death very, very easily. So these are bad guys trying to continue to operate the same way bad guys do. They're trying to intimidate and coerce and say misinformation or disinformation. Don't we see that even today? A bunch of misinformation and disinformation. And we're going to see the response from Nehemiah. We're going to get, too bad Chuck wasn't here, we're going to get to see what happened back at the farm kind of response right here. So in verse 20, so I responded to them with a word, and I said to them, the God of heaven will give us success. Therefore we, his slaves, will arise and build, but you have no portion, right, or remembrance in Jerusalem. Oh, the response is really revealing here, right? He could have been like, oh, look at the letter I have from the king of Persia, from Exodus. No. He doesn't do that. They have just accused Nehemiah and the people of rebelling against the king. Like I said, most of that time that could result in death or locked away for a very long time, forever. Most of us right here would just probably pulled out that king's letter and be like, hey, I'm allowed to be here, buddy. I got the work permit. Don't shut me down. No. The king approves it. But instead of appealing to them in the earthly authority, Nehemiah does something else. He appealed to the greatest authority of all. Nehemiah, he appeals to the God of heaven, as in the verse says. We discussed there's some political positioning here. They went out and attacked their misinformation and disinformation and tried to intimidate them from stopping to do what they're doing. But it's all about but Nehemiah is connecting back to God. He's rallying the troops once again. They're probably sitting there listening, and instead of going, they know and they believe him. He's connected with them from an honesty and integrity. They know he has the permission. They know they have the letter. He came in with all the troops with him. He's coming in with the king's lumber. That's why Nehemiah had the forethought here. He brought everything with him to show that, going to kill, take the king's lumber and take it without permission, that would have been death. So he has all these signs that he has the permission. So the people he's connected to them, and they realize it. And then Nehemiah has complete confidence that the Lord will give him success here. And the people are seeing it. And he knows that only God's servants can accomplish this feat because Jerusalem is their portion, right, and memorial, and no one else. These outsiders, they have no right to help build. They're not a part of the nation of Israel. They're not God's people. So he knows they have nothing to do with it. And we just watched The Blind, was almost 2 weeks ago. And it kind of reminded me here at the end when Phil Robinson was talking at the end and was giving a monologue, and he says, hey, sometimes you just have to walk in faith. Like I said, Nehemiah could easily have pointed out the king's decree and said, hey, but he's shown it. He has the lumber, he came in with the army, he has the protection, but he's walking in faith instead of relying on the earthly authorities here. And Nehemiah is poised in the face of his enemies. True leadership, It's hard. You're pinned down getting in a gunfight and people are asking you what to do. You gotta suck it up and start giving direction. And Nehemiah did not, quim in the face of adversity here. And he's not intimidated at all because his faith, he's walking in faith. And I like the word, what I got here. My professor wrote about this, and I kind of agree. I believe there is such thing as holy stubbornness, meaning a resolve to obey God and seek His glory regardless of the cost and regardless of the difficulties. Yeah. Sometimes you can take that in a bad way, but here the stubbornness, he's like, I am not backing down. I am going to build this wall, and I have the full authority as God. And as a believer, and myself included, we need to have that stiff backbone in the face of mockery, misinformation, intimidation, and be a faithful follower of Christ, because with Christ, all things are impossible. Beloved, and if anyone is not a believer, and you think I've been speaking to you, no, you got it all wrong. The Holy Spirit has been speaking to you and connecting with you. And if you feel the call, respond, repent, and believe. And I have a few final thoughts as we get ready to transition. What part does rest play in your serving the Lord? Nehemiah rested. Jesus took time to rest and pray. It's okay to take a knee and recover. If we're leaders, we're trying to share the gospel. Sometimes you need to collect your thoughts and yourselves and be physically and mentally prepared. Don't overtake too much rest. Don't take too much of a pause. But it's okay to take a rest, take some time, take some vacation in a modern context. Enjoy your family, enjoy others. But do you use it to means to be more productive for the kingdom business, or are you just resting because you're just resting? Not like a hymn, but I hope everybody understands the connection there. As Nehemiah inspect the walls, how regularly do you examine what needs to be done around you in the name of Christ? Ooh, I'm pondering this more and more as I thought about this question. And then what has God put in your heart to do? And I'll close with that. I know God has put in my heart to pray more often, be connected with more people, and share the gospel, be more intentional. And it's difficult, but I know, I need to, like Phil Robertson said, you gotta walk in faith a little bit more. And I'll close with that. Anybody have any comments, questions? Because this is a Bible stuff or Sunday school. Ted.
Yeah, listening to your presentation, I was painting a picture. Probably everybody else painted a picture, but everybody has a different picture. First, I see this wall around a couple acres here, and this Jeremiah, this faithful man, and all these troops just marched 800 or 1,000 miles, took them a month, or whipped out, and they walked around this thing. Big deal. Then I got the big picture. Imagine us today walking around Brunswick. I mean, Jerusalem is big, right?
Yeah. Even back then, it was huge.
Then I think of Mr. Jeremiah and so much I would like to be like him. And either you're all in or you're not at all.
You can't be halfway in, right?
All in.
Can't be halfway in. Being halfway is just as bad as being all the way up, right?
Yeah.
Anybody ask a question? I'll transition real quick. Dear Heavenly Father, we pray to you today. And I thank you for everyone that's here, anyone that's listening. And I thank you for the beautiful words and representation here about being a true leader, the attributes of Nehemiah, being so thoughtful and knowledgeable in hearing, not afraid of straying away from leadership, but also giving the credit to you and knowing he can't do it alone. Oh, do I wish to connect in that way, Lord. pray for Pastor Buck, our church, and bless us as we continue with our sermon in Luke. And I just pray for everyone's health, prosperity, and safe travels at the end of our service today. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen.